Do you struggle with getting sharp photos? In this video, I'm explaining how autofocus works and the different modes you can use to make sure your photos are sharp every time. Hey there, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Chris. I'm teaching you photography and creative business. Today we're learning all about autofocus. This is one of the most important photography concepts you need to understand if you want to take sharp, crisp photos. Have you ever come home from taking photos, excited to see what you shot, only to realize that half the photos aren't sharp or the details don't look clear? Chances are your focus settings might have been off. Luckily, learning about focus is straightforward. Almost every modern camera has autofocus built in. This means that when you hold down the shutter button, the camera's going to focus the lens so that parts of the image look in focus. Cameras have multiple focus modes that you can use. Depending on what kind of photography you're doing, some focus modes are going to be better than others. Let's take a step back and dive into what it means for a photo to be in focus. First off, not everything in a photo can be in focus due to the optical qualities of a lens. Instead, imagine there's a plane of focus that's always parallel to your camera sensor. I'm going to use my hand here to demonstrate it. Imagine my hand represents this plane of focus. Everything that lies on this plane that my hand is on will be in focus. When your camera adjusts the focus, what it's basically doing is moving this imaginary plane forward and back. So if you want to focus on the bookshelf behind me, you would have to move this plane of focus all the way back to the bookshelf. That's exactly what the camera is doing when it's focusing. It's just moving this plane of focus. Everything that isn't on the plane won't be in focus. How much this is out of focus varies on your aperture and how far away your camera is from the subject. I talked about aperture in my exposure triangle video, so check that one out to learn more. The plane of focus is actually a simplified explanation of what's going on, but for the sake of this video, it's enough of an explanation. If you want to go more in depth, I suggest looking up depth of field and focus. Okay, so now back to focus. We know your camera is changing where the plane of focus in an image lies, so how does your camera actually do this? Your camera has an autofocus system, AF for short. There are different modes of AF that you can select. The main two modes are AFS, which stands for single shot, and AFC, which stands for continuous. AFS, or single shot, tells your camera to focus on a part of an image and then locks in that focus. So if you focus and then move your camera, the focus will stay locked to where you were before you moved your camera. This is useful if you want to compose an image and focus on something in the center, and then move your camera to reframe that subject to the side of the frame. In this scenario, your subject will remain in focus even if you reframe the image. AFC, or continuous, tells your camera to constantly be refocusing your image based on the movements of the camera or the movements of your subject. For example, if you're photographing someone that's moving towards you, you'd want to be shooting in AFC to ensure they stay in focus as they're moving towards you. Choosing the right mode really depends on what you're photographing. If you're shooting landscapes, AFS is probably a good choice. If you're shooting sports, you're going to want to be on AFC mode. So we know about focus modes. Now let's talk about focus area. I'm going to be talking about Sony cameras in this example, but these settings are pretty much universal across brands. Focus modes told us how the camera will focus. Focus area will tell the camera where to focus. The default position for most cameras is a wide focus area. This tells the camera to focus over the entire frame. The camera's going to guess what the subject is in this scenario. Sometimes the wide area is unreliable if you're shooting still scenes, but if you're shooting a moving subject, then the camera's pretty good at picking out the subject. Next, we have zone. In this mode, the frame is broken up into a handful of zones and you can tell the camera where to focus in. So, you can tell the camera to focus on the top right, the middle right, middle left, etc. The camera will only try and hunt for focus in that area. Here, it's doing a little guesswork, but you've narrowed down where the camera is looking for focus. Next, we have center. Here, the camera will only hunt for focus in the center of the frame. This is useful to use with AFS or single shot mode because you can focus in the center and then move the camera to recompose the image however you like. Now, let's talk about my favorite, and that's single point autofocus. This is kind of like center where it focuses on one point, but with this mode, you can move that focus square around the frame. So if you always want to focus on a single point in the top right, you can just move the focus square there. This is great for product photography, landscapes, and most still images. Finally, some newer and more expensive cameras have eye autofocus. In this focus mode, it's going to automatically focus on a person's eye if you're in wide or zone focus areas. This is great for portraiture. So let's go over what we learned. The two main modes of autofocus are AFS or single shot and AFC or continuous. AFS is better for still subjects, AFC is better for moving subjects. We know the focus areas are wide, zone, center, and single point. These all have their own advantages and disadvantages. Wide and zone are better for moving subjects, center and single are better for still subjects. Just keep that in mind next time you're photographing. This was a lot of information, but once you start applying this, it's gonna make so much more sense. Take photos, analyze which ones are in focus, and then write down what settings you used. That's how you're gonna learn. You're going to learn more by doing the work than anything else. Have fun with it, and capture some awesome photos. If you've watched this far, thank you. I think it's great you're trying to learn more about photography, and if you can take a second to please like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd mean a lot to me. I want to say hi to all my new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.